Flipping the pyramid.
Flipping the pyramid.
Flipping the pyramid.
Flipping the pyramid.
Flip the pyramid. Flipping the pyramid.
We aim to see the world as it really is.
Turning that pyramid on its head.
www.flippingthepyramid.co.uk.
Flipping the pyramid.
Flipping the pyramid.
Flippingthepyramid.co.uk.
Flipping the whole paradigm of that hierarchical system on its head.
Hey, hello folks, welcome to flippingthepyramid.co.uk. If you hadn't already guessed it, well, I guess you're listening to this, so you must have, hopefully. Yes, hello and welcome, and hello to everybody in the chat room. Adonis King in the house. It's time to get loved up. Way. Good to see you, matey. Hope you're well. Yes, where shall we begin? It is the 27th of September 2012, and we're still here. Yes, it is it yet another doomsday gone past? I think we've had a couple go past in the last few days. Yeah, I'm aware that the celebrations, the fact that Yom Kippur, not necessarily occupying just a 24-hour period, so we shall see. Been incidents in the Golan Heights with allegedly misdirected fire from the Syrians landing in the Golan Heights, so it's highly fertile ground for a false flag. Something else I'll mention as well in a bit. But yes, we're still here. We still have connection. We have a newfangled internet radio broadcasting system going through Caster FM now, which some of the guys set up over the last day or so. Thank you very much for getting that sorted. Those of you that are more net ninjas than I certainly am. It's all voodoo to me, folks. As long as I can click the buttons and it does what they tell me it will do, that's great. That's could easily be said to be part and parcel of what we're doing at the moment. Something else I'll talk about in a bit. I will try and do some talking if I can manage to. Slowly losing my voice at the moment. Yes, I've been a little bit ill. I'm not sure what it is. That's something else I'll mention as well. Not that I've got some weird illness. No, I mean just seemingly the effects over the past few days. But yes, I will try and talk. I'll talk as much as I'm able to, which I love to do anyway. Listen to the sound of my own self-reflection into the echo chamber that is internet radio broadcasting. Yes, we're all in the alternative media now, folks, whether you like it or not. It's just I choose to put stuff out there, whereas your images, your internet snail trail of information, of data that you are creating in this new virtualized world is out there. There was some interesting little bits and bobs about the use of data, etc. in the past several days. There always is, there's some news articles and talking head articles about that kind of topic in the last several days. It does seem that the system has somewhat kept a little bit more quiet recently about such things like ACTA, SOPA, all those different name versions that they've been trying to push through legislation to control the internet. Really? Do you really think it matters whether they have legislation or not? They already are and already have been manipulating the internet and controlling data, collecting data, databasing data. And yes, I say it in that way. Data. It's not data. Yes, let's not descend into a rant about pronunciation of words. Yes, so anyway, rambling already. I will try and talk, but I will be playing more music and other stuff at you at the same time. I mean, at the same time within the show, rather than talking on. You know what I mean? Just getting silly. This is something I've been planning to do for a little while. If you don't listen to Adonis, please go and check him out. Regular show on Fin Radio from freedominfonetwork.org for the main centre homepage, as it were, and from there you can find links to the radio, etc. It's been a great inspiration for me, Adonis. I love what you're doing. We've chatted about this before, I'm just now starting to try and pull things together to start trying, hopefully. I say try, shouldn't say try, there is no try, there is only do, to put together something that is more of that kind of radio setup, even though we're going across the internet, but it's still radio because you're getting audio without the pictures, etc. The internet gives us a lot more connectivity opportunities. I will be changing up how I am going to do the show, and it will probably not stick to one night a week. I may still do a particular one night a week show at the same time. I'm not sure whether I'm going to do that live or podcast it or do a mixture of the two or whatever, but I do want to try broadcasting more and more often, and if I can do it, then I will attempt to approach it from a daily fashion, maybe put something out each day. It might not necessarily be me talking, it might be more music, it might be a rebroadcast of other people's podcasts, which I or others feel is valuable, is worth others listening to, etc., or having access to. Changing things up in that manner. We've got the ability to utilise this functionality of the internet. Could talk about the duality of the use of tools. The agenda, the machine, the beast wants to manipulate it to be able to control people, to centralise all information and control it. We can also make use of it to decentralise information and spread it and give access to people from as many different directions as we can. So they might not necessarily have access to the internet, but they might be able to get hold of a podcast from somebody and listen to it. You know the kind of thing I'm talking about. It's the same as when you go to protests, you hand out DVDs of information and films, documentaries, stuff like that. It's spreading the information and making it as accessible as possible to people. That's I feel and have felt for a long time. It's a big part of what we are doing, need to do, and need to do more on. So anyway, again, before I diverge off the subject, I have a habit of rambling, as regular listeners know very well. So I try to remember on topic for what I'm telling you about at the current moment. Yes, so the show will be changing, and at the moment this week certainly that's probably going to prove somewhat advantageous for me because I am losing my voice. Try not to cough too much at you, etc., like I normally do. Yes, I know, terrible hacking internet connection. It's a different kind of hacking. So yes, anyway, one thing I wanted to mention that's sort of along that point of hacking, some of you may be aware of some of this. I don't know, it depends whether you subscribe to their YouTube channels and stuff like that, if you utilise YouTube at all. But there was a recent incident. One of the channels that I've followed for quite a while on YouTube, it used to be called Barbarian Rebellion. This guy called Aaron in Canada. I found he does some very interesting stuff to do with the more occult side of information and knowledge, looking at things like that kind of esoteric occult knowledge and investigating where it comes from, symbology, numerology, stuff like that. I find it interesting. I'm not saying you have to believe it or anything, that's up to you. Look at it if you choose to. But recently his channel got hacked, I must say that, really, strictly speaking, it wasn't hacked. He was conned out of allowing somebody access. They got at him through his Skype, because if you're not aware, there's been some incidents involving Skype over the last few months where it is susceptible to certain types of hacking, etc. That was his vulnerability, allowing somebody in that respect, that they could get into his system, get access to his channel. And I do not believe that the people involved are truly part of Anonymous, unless, of course, there's stuff going on in the background there that I don't know about between him and people in Anonymous. I've no idea, but I don't think there is. It seems that they were using this is the problem again, the duality of technologies and tools and stuff like that. They have used the cloak as cover, saying that they are anonymous, so that they can trash his channel, basically, because that's all they've done. They've just deleted all these videos, put up some stupid videos, taking the mickey, and then put up some copyrighted stuff, because they knew full well that by doing that, YouTube would copyright strike them and shut the channel down. So in effect, they've just trashed his channel for him, which is really nice. But mentioning this for a few reasons, primarily to let people know, you can find on the Truther Girls, you can find links from there through to Aaron's stuff. I'm sure that at some point he will start another channel and put his stuff back up again. But this is also more as a general warning, to those people that put that kind of alternative information out there, and without getting into sides of who you follow and who you don't like, and infighting and arguing and whatever. That's not the point to me. The fact is that all of these people, no matter what angle they're coming from, they're all trying to put information out there, share information. That to me is important. That to me is useful. So if those kind of channels and access avenues to information are being deliberately targeted and took down, just word of warning. Be aware and be a little bit more suspicious. Paranoia is not necessarily a bad thing. It could save your life. Just don't fall into pathological paranoia. A little bit of paranoia could potentially protect you from being caught off guard or conned by something in a similar fashion. So anyway, yes, I hope Aaron gets his stuff sorted out. I'm sure he will at some point. But just fair warning, there are, whether it is just somebody being malicious, I think it was somewhat childish if it was just an act of maliciousness, but I think there's more to it than that. Yes, anyway. I will play some tunage. Well, I think since Dennis is in the house, let's play his Red Pill, and I'll play some tunes, couple of tunes for you. Let me have a look, pick something through. I think we should start. I don't know whether people actually sort of caught on to this. I'm sure you did. I don't want to try and pretend that I have any kind of delusion of ego that I'm doing something particularly insightful. But part of what I had been doing recently, part of why I named the show Virtual Shamanizing, I've sort of touched on the ideas before, but I was sort of presenting you with stuff that might have, to a certain degree, agitated you, been a bit more on the higher energy scales, a bit aggressive, that kind of, I'd play music that was most likely metal or rock orientated, stuff like that. The idea was to just fan the flames a little bit, kindle a little bit of agitation within you, inspire those emotions and thoughts that are what I feel is the natural reply to a threat or aggression, those sensations of standing up for yourself, basically, and trying to foster that kind of feeling of resistance against the crap that we're facing, let's put it that way. And from that point then, I would try and take that energy, and I'm not talking in a vampiric sense. I'm not trying to take energy away from people. I'm just trying to transmute it, or to help them to empower themselves to transmute it for themselves and take what could be destructive energy and channel it into something that could hopefully be constructive, productive, creative. So yeah, I had been sort of, initially playing music at people to sort of, like I say, sort of give a little nudge to those kind of feelings of motivation, but I will pick some music that's a little bit mixed to start with. And yes, as I say, I'm starting to lose my voice a bit as it is. I will talk about some news articles. I will talk about some contemporary news stuff, and I'll mention some other stuff as well. I will still do that kind of talking stuff that I do, just not quite to the length of extent of rambling round the bushes as I often do. I'm sure that's probably not going to end up being true, knowing me. I'll probably start and not stop, just like I am now. I think it's been at least 2 minutes since I said I was going to play some music, and I haven't actually played any music. Right, so I'm going to shut up now and play some stuff for you. I will be back in a few minutes, about 10-15 minutes. Yeah, I hope you enjoy it.
Hey, has the revolution got you down, tired, afraid, alone, or depressed? Well then, we at Finn Radio just might have the solution. What you need is... Our special red pill formula consists of a variety of music, from classic rock to alternative to dubstep, combined with generous amounts of wisdom, love, and humor, all administered free by me, Adonis King, almost daily from 7 a.m. to noon Pacific U.S. time. Only here on
Finn Radio, freedominfonetwork.org.
Floating in a sea of misinformation, outright lies, blatant propaganda, and institutionalized indoctrination, we aim to see the world as it really is, not as we're told it is by our politicians, the corporate-controlled media, the agendized academia, or the failed dogma of religious prejudice. Together, we are flipping the pyramid. www.flippingthepyramid.co.uk. Flipping the Pyramid is a group of individuals that have come together.
Too many jingles. Sorry about that. I'm still getting into the swing of trying to manoeuvre this stuff round on the playlist. We'll get there, hopefully. Oh dear. Hello folks, welcome back to me rambling. Just 3 songs and a little short clip hit from Bill Hicks. Songs were Venus in Furs from the Velvet Underground, Find No Enemy from Akala, and Get Up Stand Up from Bob Marley. I hope you sort of picked up on that progression, the 3 stages of humankind. Are you kissing the whip, to then seeing the true enemy in the mirror, to then getting up and standing up for yourself? Maybe. Am I clutching at very amorphous straws? Probably. If you don't want to hear idealistic drivel, then I suggest you tune into Question Time. Maybe you'll find that more entertaining. Anyway, yes, hello, welcome back. Yes, I was going to say, I think next show on here on the Flipping the Pyramid radio network would be Keelan on Sunday, I believe, with the Wide Shut broadcast. I think Red's changing up what he's going to do. He's spending a lot more time posting links to news articles and stuff like that. So yes, when you start looking at all this kind of information, it can absorb quite a lot of time trying to keep track of various things or researching into stuff, whatever. Yes, there is a hell of a lot of info out there, folks, so it can easily absorb the majority of your time, and that's part of what I was going to mention, talk about, etc. There is, I feel, my opinion, my perspective, just to caveat it as per usual. We often talk about the awakening and all that kind of good, classically straw-manned hippie type idealism. The system likes to straw-man it in that kind of fashion. I think if you bother to look into it for yourself, you'll find that, as in almost every case when this kind of thing starts occurring, and I've talked about this in numerous different ways, the agenda will latch onto stuff and attempt to corral and steer people away from any true value within the information that might be there. Don't think about being sovereign to your own mind. No, it's all to do with taking drugs and dropping out. That's what it's to do with, folks. I'm talking ironically in reference to the 60s period. It's all about hedonism. It's all about just enjoying yourself and giving two fingers to the system. Oh yeah, that's great. You go and sit in that little corral over there. Spend a few years in a debauched state of hedonistic playing, and then once you're done with that, we'll give you a job to do. It's ironically funny how, and other people have pointed this out over the years, it's ironic to find how many from that hippie generation are now in more of what you could call a conservative point of view on life, or even employment, lifestyle, etc., etc. I don't think it's accurate to say that all of the idealism of that period in time have been completely lost or subjugated. No, not at all, but a large part of it was, certainly. And that, we were talking about this with some friends recently. This is something that I was looking at quite a few years ago, sort of watching those, or starting to see them appear. For me, like I said, my perspective, starting to see them appear in that cyclic fashion that it keeps cropping up within our evolution. And when I say our evolution, please don't fall into that trap of Darwinian biomechanics. I'm not talking a fundamentalist atheistic point of view. I'm talking about the fact that evolution as a definition can just merely represent the linear progression of anything, be it a life form or an idea or a tree, whatever. It just represents the fact that this reality that we all experience, the 3D reality, is linear. In the way that we currently experience it, it certainly is. It's linear, progressive. So therefore, evolution to me represents that. Is evolution reaching up to something greater than it used to be? I think that's inevitable by the process of systems. It's just, once the system started, it's inevitable that it would evolve to such a state. And when talking about the distribution of information in that kind of fashion, I was talking about reusing the radio show or access to this kind of media in other ways, and how, for me, from my perspective, seeing those kind of cycles of the re-emergence of those kind of questions to become more within the popular mindset doesn't necessarily mean that they are taking the lead. It doesn't necessarily mean that they are even right or wrong. It's just the fact that there are more people thinking about them. There are more people communicating with each other about those kind of ideas, concepts, questions, perspectives. And whenever that resurges, whenever that rises up again through the banal mud that is pressed onto people by the system at large, the dross, the drivel, the crap that is peddled for intelligent occupations by our media. You know, these are the things that you should occupy your mind with. Football trivia. Yes, spend your entire life learning every single bit of trivial data to do with football games and blah, 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 blah. That's the dross that they want to fill your brain with, so there's no space for you to think. You spend too much time just revolving around the subject matters that they give you that are pointless, empty, banal, wedge issues, however you want to term them. They're not going to progress you or anybody else anywhere. But the reason I mention that, or one of the reasons I mention that, as I tend to do, I like to have some kind of general topic that I'm talking around. And strangely enough, it was just a culmination of coincidences. Yes, it must be coincidences, because, you know, it can't be synchronicity. That would be far too new age. Oh no, don't have any of that here. No. Yes, I'm being sarcastic again. Chatting earlier with others, and somebody mentioned that on the BBC News main homepage, if you look at just their normal main news page, on the right hand side there's like a feature bar. I'm not going to link this into the chat room because I don't want to propagate it that far. It's more, you know, you can look for it if you wish to. Down on that right hand side there's a section called Features and Analysis with some like selected articles, whatever, and the one at the bottom is titled Illuminati, and a little description blurb underneath says, can Blackpool's illuminations last for another 100 years? And if you actually go and look at the article, it's nothing at all to do with the Illuminati. Absolutely nothing at all. Doesn't mention that word again in the article. My opinion, I feel that article is war propaganda, because it talks about the kind of subject matters that are to incite a nationalistic sense of patriotism and the stiff upper lip attitude of the British and your good old traditions and remember the nation, we're powerful. It's all that kind of good rhetoric, talking about whether Blackpool are going to continue with their seasonal illuminations that they used to do, etc., using that as a cover angle. But why is it listed as Illuminati on the main page? And when somebody told me about this, I went and had a look. I thought, yes, the first thought that went through my head, other than the fact that they put that there, was that's a deliberate brainworm. You know, and lo and behold, it turns out, as others have been talking about online, the BBC seems to have been doing this irregularly but fairly often in recent times. You know, the BBC is such a respected news source all across the world. It's a highly respected news source. If you ever actually listen to the BBC World Service from another country, you know, you live in another country listening to the BBC World Service, you'll find that the news it presents on there is quite different to the news that's presented to those of us who actually live within the UK and use the normal BBC services, if you use them. They're much more upfront and realistic and, dare I say, honest on the World Service, because they know they can't get away with the usual kind of bullshit, because people in other countries will have access to other sources of information, their own nation's information sources, etc. Plus, you know, coming at it from a different angle, not living within the UK, means they're more likely to question the stuff that's put in front of them. Whereas here in the UK, good old BBC, good old auntie, lovely auntie, she can't be nasty, she can't be the horrible auntie with the hairy lip that always wants to kiss you and, you know, smother you. No. She's the nice auntie, honest folks, yeah. So she's planting brainworms by using that word deliberately as the title for that article. You know, I really don't feel that people are naive enough to think that that's just an honest kind of innocent mistake. No, 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 no. And if you're not naive enough to fall for the honest, innocent mistake angle, then you start questioning why have they used that word. Why indeed have they used that word? Is it to make sure that it remains within the popular consciousness in the same way that they do with many other topics? They want you to be thinking about this. Don't be asking other questions. Think about this. Keep your brain occupied with this. Here's some mental bubble gum for you to chew over so that you don't question too much. Don't think about stuff. Don't want you thinking, oh, no, no, no. Listen to Auntie. And yes, I am being deliberately silly, as I'm wont to do, laugh in the face of their terrorism. Oh dear. Yes, okay. Well, other than mentioning that, BBC brainworms. Yeah, we all subject to those kind of brainworms in one way or another. Digging them out again is the process. And that led me to thinking about the as I want to do, what you could call the larger picture, the bigger picture, the longer perspective, whatever, however you want to view it. This is just the kind of stuff that goes through my head, whatever. It led me to questioning that agenda to propagate the idea of rewilding people, of downsizing, of returning to nature. And as I'm sure regular listeners will know, these are all topics I like to talk about quite often, that I encourage people to be interested in and have a look at and whatever, to consider these kind of perspectives. I do personally think that we do need to downsize the way we live. The Western lifestyle is highly destructive. It's mostly useless in that it doesn't really produce anything that's helping the species as a whole. It's quite narcissistic and nihilistic. Lots of good ist words and ism words I could bandy around in a generalised way. Yes, whatever, you know what I'm talking about. So yeah, I do think there is a lot of merit in these kind of topics, but you must also keep that awareness that, my opinion, my perspective, when you look into these larger, longer arching agendas and the kind of ideologies and theologies that these people, for want of a better word, are following, then that is part and parcel of what they want you to be thinking about. Approach it from this angle. Agenda 21. If you follow the principal idea of Agenda 21 combined with Codex Alimentarius and a smattering of a few of the other major agendas that are currently being unfolded upon us, this is not up for debate anymore, folks. These things are actually happening around you. Codex Alimentarius especially. Agenda 1 is, it's just that it takes longer time periods for each step to go through, so therefore people don't notice it happening as much. It's not as much in your face. For example, the over-domination of the Eurozone legislative structure over any structure of any individual nation within the Eurozone itself. To those overarching agendas, do you really think that the people that put these plans together hadn't thought through the kind of reactions that they would expect to see from the public and how to manipulate those actions, those reactions and those emotions? As I said, an awareness of the possibility that by following such concepts as downsizing, returning to nature, we are potentially following a plan that leads us to the kind of Agenda 21 style idea of megacities and reservations, natural reserves. Yes, I'm thinking along the lines of the time machine kind of H.G. Wells, Eloy, and the Morlocks, and it's been presented in other ways in various other stories, repeated again and again and again. This concept is repeated again and again and again. Cities are major factories of the economic system. Utilising their economic system that they have set up, a city is the best way to get the most out of that economic system. And I'm talking about the kind of faux economy, the false economy, the pseudo-economy that they are currently beating down the rest of the world with. Their Ponzi scheme, printing money out of thin air, economic, fractional reserve banking, blah 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 system. So they want as many people as possible in cities. I'm just, giving a really basic, generalised kind of perspective of the end result of Agenda 21. They want the majority of people living in mega cities because that will churn out tons and tons of this faux economy, while at the same time there will be vast natural reserves where nobody's allowed to go, except of course for those in charge and their subordinates that they are sanctioned to go. It is quite well represented in the Hunger Games storyline, and I haven't read the actual book, but from what I've seen of the film, it's quite well presented. So, as we're circling round the bushes here, those brainworms at the BBC, yes, there is a lot of information there that I feel is of value for people to look into. I myself have spent time looking into, such as, the Illuminati, one of those topics that is worth researching, in my opinion. But when it starts to appear in front of the mass populace in such a way, then you have to question why it's being done. And for me, that leads to an obvious propaganda style manipulation of the general consciousness of what people should be contemplating and talking about. This could also potentially lead into a strawman knockdown attack, a hit piece or other such coming out of the BBC within the near future. I think I've noticed that they seem to operate on about a 3-month cycle, approximately a 12-week cycle. They'll put something out, and within the next 12 weeks, not always immediately after, it could vary, but it's usually within a 3-month period, they'll culminate that initial action. So if they're utilising a word like Illuminati in that kind of perspective, then I would expect to see some kind of hit piece or rhetorical attack piece put out by them within the next 12 weeks, if they go into it all. But sorry, trying not to cough out. Somewhat interesting, certainly. Maybe a bit too obvious for people, but I think we need something a bit heavier for to do that. Sorry, I'm talking while I'm clicking stuff at the same time, which may be quite distracting. Like I said, I'm still trying to get my fingers around this. I'm learning new finger foo. Hopefully. Yes, I'm going to play some more music at you folks, and I'll come back and ramble further from that point of the manipulation of people's current consciousness, or their current tunnel reality that they are in. Subliminals, let's put it that way. Yes, anyway, this is a bit older, not that old. I should stop explaining what I'm playing and just play it.
What a fish!
You're a loony.
You're a loony. Yes, hello folks, welcome back. It's me, croaky voice again. Yes, I'm not ignoring the sheer extreme gravity, serious nature of what that guy was saying. Somebody by the name of Patrick Clawson, an Israeli lobbyist, who at that recent meeting made that statement. The fact that he's laughing about the idea of, oh, well, submarine might go down and, it might not come back up. Oh, dear, how terrible. What do you know? We had a few beers. Next thing you know, we were in Poland. Whoa. Yes. I'm cherry-picking old comedy. But the point being, he's quite happy to stand there at a nice, comfortable little luncheon meeting and talk about how, it'd be great if something bad happened to these people, if there was some kind of false flag, because, please do take note that everything he mentions is provable false flag. I'm sure some people might argue differently, but I feel there is more than enough evidence to show each of those incidents were deliberately played through to engage greater conflicts, whether that be a world war or whatever. He's quite happy to stand there and say that, because he's not going to be the one putting on a uniform, picking up a gun and walking out onto that front line. He's referring to the dumb pawns, the military men being used, again paraphrasing Kissinger's classic quote. Is that the American way? And would that bring justice for all? 2 tracks I played, Metallica and Justice for All, and Sacred Reich, The American Way. And the little clip I threw in there, it's just one of my old little audio clippets, snipped out of various different movies and whatever, put together. I think he needs some of the medication that is currently so popular over there in the United States, that they are force feeding onto their population, and sort of jumping from that tenuous link as I like to do, and linking it into that overarching agenda perspective that I was talking about earlier. Here's a few links for you in the chat room. They're all basically referring to the same story, but I find it interesting to look at them, looking at them from 3 different perspectives, and how in each different point of view how the information is presented to us. First one is from the Activist Post. The tide turns, Monsanto's GM corn suspended in Russia. It's a fairly viral story at the moment. It's been pushed out across different websites, from the Natural News, if I can talk at all at the moment, naturalnews.com. Russia bans all GMO corn imports. EU may also ban Monsanto GMO in wake of shocking cancer findings. And finally, the point I'm giving you different perspectives or different representations of the same story. Here it is on the Daily Mail. Yes, the Daily Mail actually featured this story, if you could call it featured this story, and that's my point as well, also pointing references back to those kind of brainworms of the BBC propaganda that I was talking around. Now, on the first 2 articles, you can see that they've linked to the original information, where you can find further links into the actual study itself, etc. So if you, as a interested individual and utilising your own critical thought, you want access to this kind of information, so links have been included in those first 2 articles from Activist Post and Natural News. Natural News, Mike Adams has got his own kind of perspective on this sort of topic. He's quite vociferous in the way he attacks it, which, as far as I'm concerned, is fair enough. He makes a point. It's just the way he presents it is somewhat more in your face. He actually includes some of the pictures from the study of the rats with the tumours, etc. And then you look at Daily Fail article. It has no links to the original information or the actual study report itself. It's got a few sort of nice ambient photos, stock photos probably. I mean, there's one with some damaged corn there, which doesn't exactly look like much of anything. I'm sure people might look at it and go, oh, well, I could still use most of that. You just scrape out the bad bits and the rest will be alright. Nice picture of some farmland. Don't take any notice of the fact that that's a massive giant agribusiness type farm field, industrialised, mechanised farming. And then a nice picture of an attractive young lady enjoying a nice bowl of lovely cereal, isn't it lovely? Oh yeah, big smile. And the article itself is somewhat devoid of any, protesting or offended questioning of sort of like, what the hell is this? They're talking about this stuff gives you cancer. What's going on here? Oh, no sense of outrage or anything. It's just, oh yeah, those crazy Russians are doing something crazy again. I found that just an interesting sort of observation of talking about sharing information and giving people access to information. The way it's presented and the way it's put in front of people, the way it's framed, the various levels of subliminals that are dropped in there. That's what I mentioned, things like the difference in the photographs. The Natural News has got photos from the study itself, somewhat unpleasant, pictures of these rats with grossly oversized tumours and stuff like that. And you look at the Daily Mail one and it's just nice sort of, empty pictures, nice smiley face, that kind of subliminal manipulation of the way your thoughts are, or the direction your thoughts take, how you think about the actual information. I think it's most likely that the Daily Mail is putting this out because there's so many other news sources talking about this very subject. The fact that the study has been done, peer-reviewed by a recognised, academically accepted scientific institution, etc., etc., they can't ignore it. So this is, damage control, propaganda damage control, and it's interesting to see how they attempt to frame it to enable that damage control, the way it is presented to the popular consciousness. Daily Mail has quite a large amount of traffic, certainly here in the UK. It's one of the news websites that receives a lot of traffic. Now, as people are gradually changing from the old style media of the newspaper, etc., the Daily Mail has done quite well for itself in its internet versions, along with others, of course. There's others out there like Telegraph and Independent and The Guardian and The Times. I'm not deliberately propagating any one particular media group. Give them as little power as possible. I value the information and the ideas and the concepts contained within, rather than falling into supporting any one particular group or corporation or whatever form they take. So, where was I? Yes, talking about that poisoning, that agenda, manipulation of information into that bigger, longer lasting agenda that is attempting to create a new world order. It was interesting to watch and listen to both the UN speech that Ahmadinejad gave, I think it was yesterday or the day before, and his interview with Piers Moron. I think that's going to be his new name as far as I'm concerned. It was also interesting to watch his interview, Piers Moron interviewing Jesse Ventura the other day as well. That was brilliant. If you haven't seen that, look it up. You find it on Mox News. Mox has got the whole bit on there. Yes, all of this stuff been quite interesting recently. People talking about Ahmadinejad's mentioning the New World Order and stuff like that. Yes, he did, but he also talked about what he called a true world order, a change of that old paradigm. I think he's in the advantageous position at the moment where he knows that the Western forces are out to get him in one way or another, and his best defence is to be the nice, quiet guy who just smiles and nods whenever Piers interrupts him or talks rubbish at him. Piers Moron being his usual offensive self and ignorant, and just so many words I could rant at that guy. For us here in the UK, it's been great that he's been extradited, but unfortunately for you folks over in the USA, that means you've now got him. And the fact that he is employed on a international TV media group to be an interviewer, and he has his own show and all that, I feel is a sad indictment as to the state of your media. Yeah, I'm not trying to suggest that that's any worse or better than our own. Yeah, the media here in the UK is just as foul and obnoxious. But that longer arching agenda that I'm generally croaking at, they are quite happy for you to be arguing over the little minor details, the classically described wedge issues. You know, drive a wedge between you, division, get them arguing amongst themselves. Meanwhile, the agenda has been happily grinding away in the background, the globalisation of this genetically manipulated substances. Yeah, struggle to find a definition for the Frankenstein effect of these things. Another definition for GMO is genetically morbidly obese. But there you go. Globalization of these substances, which is, as people forewarned before they were released into the wilderness, these things will get out. They will infect the natural biosphere. And considering the way they've been created, i.e. to be highly resistant to certain effects, certain weather effects and arable pesticides and blight and stuff like that, these things will propagate all over the place. And if they have been well engineered to resist all this kind of stuff, that means they will become dominant, and your original natural versions of that plant will die off, and we'll lose them completely. That's why, certain groups, certain governments set up seed banks, etc., because they could see this happening. But now, hopefully, we've got to a point where, if certain countries have already banned GMO completely, other nations are now turning around and saying, "Whoa, hang on a minute, what's this? Look at this new research, this new study. This is not very good. Let's just stop for a minute." Now, I'm not suggesting that the big machine is not intertwined in its octopus-like fashion into all these countries already. Yes, it is. Obviously, I feel obviously has lesser influence or effect in certain areas or on certain nations, etc. But this, again, to me, is just another way of maybe not proving in the kind of materialistic value of proof that some deniers demand. I call them deniers in a loving way. I'm not trying to have a go at them in any sense. It's just the fact that some people demand very particular types of proof before they can break through their denial barriers. For me, there is enough proof there to show this already. The pile of evidence to show their Machiavellian manipulation of the biosphere and the agendas that go along with it, the economic globalization to tie people together, etc., etc. It proves, for me, that that agenda is being initiated, implemented, pushed through. It's been going for a while. I noticed as well that in the Daily Mail article they failed to mention, and they get it wrong about, they say they found traces of Roundup. They didn't find traces of Roundup. Roundup was part of the test. They were injecting the rats with Roundup as well, and feeding it to them, etc. So they got that wrong in the first place, which probably means they haven't really researched into it, if they even have at all. They may very well have been given this as a stock article to punt out to the public. But it doesn't sort of go into that, any aspect of the principle of how this is linked into, or how Roundup links back to DDT and Agent Orange. And although the company's names have changed, Monsanto bought up, name escapes me, I think it was Bayer. As far as I remember, it was Bayer. Oh, brain fails me, I'm sorry. Another good reason why you should look into these things for yourself. Don't rely on the memory capabilities of some bearded old fool who's ranting at you. But the point being, it doesn't mention that kind of longer history of these chemicals and how they have been brought back again and again in different ways to be used in some kind of slow warfare. Part of when I was chatting with the people earlier, is part of this to me as well is a good example of that overarching agenda that is now leading us towards, again, I'll caveat it my usual way, it's my opinions, my perspective, my way of looking at what is going on at the moment, or the way it seems to be appearing to me. I feel that we have been in the equivalent of what was described in Orwell's 1984, an industrialised, never-ending war state where that perpetuation of the fear environment, the Big Brother propaganda control of how people think and what they think, 2 + 2 = 4, etc. That is the period we've been going through for the past 4 or 5 decades, arguably. The over-industrialisation which led into the globalisation, which led to the controlled mass warfare, conflict, chaos that we are currently experiencing. They've been doing quite well at that. Whatever you want to describe them as, the bloodlines, the cabal, the Illuminati, the bankers, whatever, the people who are pulling the biggest strings possible, that are making all of us jig about like puppets, they've done quite well, I feel. Arguably they have succeeded. They have brought it to the point of conflict where the old system will be brought down, it will be destroyed in the fire of rebirth to rise up again as the new Renaissance, the phoenix bird of the Renaissance. I mentioned this before a few shows ago. They use this symbolism quite a lot. It's a recurrent theme, and it does further that principle of the cyclical use of conflict, of the stress points to, in their opinion, in their ideologies, in their way of interacting with the rest of us, it forces people into that sink or swim situation. They are hoping that during the mass catastrophes that will occur, that they will ordo ab chaos, be able to bring out Phoenix-like their new world order from the destructive end of the paradigm that we've currently been used to. Great globalizing growth, that rapid growth of the interrelated nature that they have set up for us. It's something I was thinking about earlier, which again links back to a topic that I often talk about, that awakening topic. And welcome to your awakening, please stay calm as your reality is adjusted. I try to not fall into the naivety of forgetting that these people will have already thought about all these processes and events, the reactions of the general public, and how best to manipulate, control, corral and direct those effects and reactions. For the past 3-4 months, I think a lot of it has to do with the progression towards the end of this year, the repeated and calcified meme that is the end of the world 2012 apocalypse, doomsday, whatever you want to call it, just another doomsday. The perpetuation of that grinding pressure is beneficial to them. They can utilise it quite aptly because they've had millennia to practice and perfect these techniques. Watching the clips coming out of Greece and Spain recently, and again also to say, let's not forget all the other incidents that are going on across the planet. Folks, please don't forget the fact that there are such uprisings and resistance to these effects and agendas going on globally. It's not just localised to one particular place. It's not just the Arab Spring. It's not just the new Greece, etc. This is going on all over the place. But speaking in contemporary about the things that have been happening in the past few days, watching the protests outside the parliamentary buildings in Madrid, and the way the police reacted, as per usual. If you've been to any of these larger protests, you possibly have experienced this kind of thing. Hopefully you haven't suffered from it, but that kind of attack dog reaction of responding with overt violence, the sending out of snatch squads, that usual kind of very much in your face reaction to protect the system. As the good little attack dogs that the majority of them are, the vast majority of them unfortunately, they have successfully filled their ranks with the kind of people that will do such things without question. So watching the images, video footage, reading the articles about what's going on in Greece and Spain at the moment, it's easy enough to sit here and watch the effects and talk about this is following the agenda, you can see it happening, look, let's talk about this news story now, here's another example of another false flag, here's another example of a proxy war, here's another example of people killed by drones, innocent people killed by drones. It's all going on day after day. It's accelerating day after day. That blitzkrieg tactic that they are utilising to ram through the agenda for their new world order, their control system that they want to come out of the chaos of the end of this current paradigm. And the main reason I wanted to ramble around this is, well, partly because, like I said right at the start of the show, I've not exactly been that well past couple of days, and I've only sort of kept up with the news a little bit. I've got a bit of a backlog of stuff for me to get through, so I thought, well, it's not fair for me to try and be hard on topic for something that's happened in the last couple of days, because I'm a little bit behind. So I will refer to some of that longer scope effect that we can see happening, and hopefully try to direct people back to the fact that yes, it is happening. Yes, we can talk about it endlessly. We can put lots and lots of data on the table and talk about it endlessly, but that's not actually getting you anywhere, is it? I tried to give kind of perspective on this last week. I didn't want to just present a bullet point list to people of how you prepare, or why you should prepare, or what you should stock up on, and what you should buy and what you should avoid, because that information is already out there and readily available to everyone. And I feel that it may not be 100% true, but it's 99.9% true that each person's situation is different. So this is something that is relative. It's subjective to you, to your own life, to your own situation, to your family situation, etc., etc., etc. So in terms of how you should prepare and what you should prepare, it's up to you to find out, figure out, plan for, decide on, and initiate for yourself. When we often talk about not subjecting yourself to an authority figure and subjugating yourself and understanding somebody else's word, in other words, giving up your sovereignty to somebody else's control and dictate, then it would be the height of hypocrisy to turn around and say, well, you need to do this and you need to do that, you've got to do it this way, and if you don't do it this way, you're doing it wrong. That's just silliness. That was why I didn't sort of present it in that kind of way. I was trying to encourage people more to think about their mindset, not necessarily the what and when to prepare or to accumulate or whatever, but more the why. It is also a bit of how, as in how you actually do it. Like I said, that's up for you to decide, but that also links into the mentality of preparing. When you see, or speak for myself, when I see that funeral pyre of corpses just getting higher day by day by day, and the blatantly obvious, ignorant and double-speaking, duplicitous rhetoric, it's this, oh, I don't advocate it, but I'm suggesting that somebody sinks a sub. Referring to the guy's speech earlier, when it is that obvious, it just makes me think of that time period that is normally described as the Dark Ages. It's just that now it has a technocratic veil. We are, I say slowly, needs maybe a bit of a tenuous use of that word in terms of time scales and some of the events that are going on at the moment, etc. But we are slowly being switched from that kind of Orwellian 1984 industrialised propaganda stage, as I was talking about earlier, into Huxley's genetically controlled New World Order, Brave New World, where there won't be any question of dissent or questioning, because you will be bred such that you will love your cage, you will kiss the whip, you will thank the hand that feeds you if it decides to actually feed you and not leave you to starve to death. You will fight over a job that pays an almost unlivable wage per hour, because you know full well the big corporations, that's all they're going to offer you. So you can either be out living on the streets, desperate and dishevelled and trying to scrape survival, or you can succumb to their system. Yes, I have rambled quite far around that topic. I've just about managed to keep my voice. Just about. Hopefully I wasn't croaking too much at you. I'm glad I didn't cough that much at you. I've been coughing and hacking. But that was the one last thing I'll mention, which I like to put these things out there simply because by doing such, the contradictions that I may receive back will help recenter me in what is most likely to be genuine reality, rather than succumbing to one of my own tunnel realities or delusions or whatever. This for me seemed to begin no more than a day ago, to cheesily steal a classic quote. I felt a great disturbance in the force, as if a billion voices had cried out in pain and suffering. There was, I felt, a very distinct change since the last equinox. This period, the end of September, seems to have, in an energy sense, debate all you like about that kind of topic, I don't care. In an energy sense, it has suddenly gone down rapidly. I also find it quite intriguing, maybe a personal delusion, whatever, observation bias, I don't care what you call it, how that correlates to the time wave zero ideas, theory, however you want to describe it. It did sort of show a great dip at the end of September, and to me it has felt like that. I would call how if you want to illness, the only thing I could say is it feels a bit like some kind of flu or influenza, but it is primarily just a sheer extreme lack of energy. It's as if somebody's unplugged me and I've just gone, and that has been extremely apparent for the past day or so. So, like I said, either that's just me deluding myself, but it certainly feels like something has just gone twang, and the energy has changed quite significantly. What that leads to, what that might mean, if anything at all, whatever. Like I said, I like to put these things out there because then it helps dispel them. Yes, before I disappear, just a reminder, Keelan's show will be broadcasted on Sunday. Red's changing what he's doing, so there'll be no show from Red tomorrow. I might myself broadcast some music again like I did last week, or whatever. Like I said, I'm planning to sort of up this use of the radio anyway, so see how I'm feeling tomorrow. As to if and when, I say if, it will do, it's just a matter of when this the sort of change in the broadcasting starts. We'll put a notification up on the website or whatever, so you find out from that way. I have no defined plans yet as to when I'm going to start doing this and what times and stuff like that, so we'll let you know, keep you updated. But yeah, please come back Sunday for Keelan's show. On Monday, Blue Bus will be back with Reality Check, and we will hopefully keep sharing this information. You can't, I feel you can't make good decisions with a lack of information. So I'm not trying to tell you this is right or wrong, or this is the absolute truth, or this is what you have to do. That's up to you to decide. For me, that's one of the core truths that is helping carry us through the changes that are going on around us at the moment. I think it's true that change is inevitable. The only real constant is change. But at the same time, the amount of change and strength of the effects do vary. The amplitude goes up and down, and at the moment we're in quite an extreme amplitude end of the changes that occur day by day. So those life rafts to weather the storm are things like the honest sharing of information, and the community of communication, and doing so is part and parcel of how we're getting through this, I feel. Again, for all you naysayers or whatever. Yeah, I'm just deluding myself. I'm just an idealistic hippie who thinks everything's going to be okay. Yeah, it'll all be fairies and unicorns soon, folks. Yeah, you keep telling yourself that, mate. Meanwhile, the black-booted boys will be putting your name on a list and getting ready to send the van round with a few little rolls of gaffer tape and some black bags for your head. Yes, before I descend into silliness, I have reminded people about the shows. Yeah, I'm going to play a few more tracks. I might end up going over the hour, but that doesn't matter. It's not strictly stuck to the hour, and there's at least 1, 2, 3, 4 songs I want to play for you. Let's call it 5, because I have to put the other one in. Signing me out with that one, so that them. Yes, okay, a nice little selection. Hopefully pick you up a little bit. Hopefully keep you motivated. Keep hoping. To refer back to that grand delusion of hope, the greatest illusion, whatever you want to cynically point at. Yes, I'm dribbling now on folks. I'll say shut up and thank you for listening. I will ramble at you again sometime soon, no days. Keep talking, keep evolving.
5.